Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tim. This is another Real Ideal Gear review. And today we're looking at the tools that I carry with me on a day-to-day basis when I'm out doing my lawn maintenance work. So for most people, you mow the lawn once a week, that kind of thing. I do it 3 days a week, almost 7.5 hours a day. And I'm always doing something to a gas trimmer or fixing something on the mower. Recently I had a couple of warning lights that the screws came loose on them, so I'm tightening the screws down on there. So, it's just one of those things that the more tools you have, the more likely you're going to have to fix something. And so that's why I carry these tools. These are two things I carry. I carry a Swiss Army tool, and I also carry basically a side holster with 3 tools in it. I have a flashlight pen, and I also have a multi-tool. And right off the bat, some folks are looking at this like, wait a minute, why would you carry both of these? Okay, and I think I have a pretty good reason for both. Although, if I'm looking to be really, efficient and low weight, and this is probably not the best example for that. So, but I do have reasons for both of these. We'll get into both of those in just a second. But let's start off with the Gerber multi-tool. This is the Gerber Suspension. I love this tool. I think it's a great tool. Is it perfect? No. There's no tool out there that's perfect, hence why I have so many multi-tools. Now, the primary reason for me carrying this multi-tool is for the pliers and the wire cutters. The rest of these tools I can get out of a Swiss Army knife. Okay. Now, why is it that if I want the wire cutter and pliers, why don't I just carry a set of pliers? Well, because I don't mind, if I'm going to carry a set of pliers, I don't mind having a few extra tools that go along with this. So I carry, I have a couple of screwdrivers, I've got a couple of knives in here, scissors, can opener, wire stripper, that whole thing. I've got all of that with this, along with a good set of pliers. Now I could get a really dedicated, awesome set of Knipex pliers, which they are, I think, probably the best in the world of small pliers, especially. But I don't have some of the rest of the stuff, including, frankly, and I'm not making this up, I don't mind having a saw for those occasions where I'm out doing some work and I have to cut a small branch off. Okay, and I don't have my loppers with me or my hand pruners. It's like, I need to cut something. I've got a hand saw that can do it pretty quickly and efficiently. Actually, it's a very good 2-directional saw. So that's why I don't carry a dedicated pliers. So I'm going to carry a multi-tool, and I'm going to carry it in a holster like this. Now this one has I'm not going to go through all of these things as far as like in detail, but you've got a knife, you've got a couple of screwdrivers, bottle opener. We'll open this up real quick. Small screwdriver, and then we have the scissors, which rotates around, and there we go. Okay, so there's our scissors. That's the one side of tools right there. Really nice. I like it. I actually kind of like this serrated blade. It's not a real aggressive blade, and I kind of like that. I like the fact that it's not your typical, I don't know, there just doesn't seem to be as many teeth on this blade as usual. Maybe I'm off on that, but I do like that. Now, all of these tools that open up are also locking. So this is the unlock or the release bar on here to unlock that. And this is a little bit gritty because, frankly, look at the cover here. It gets covered in grass particles and dust and all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing. Also, I like the fact that I can blow things out. So I have a skeletonized handle here to get dust and dirt out much more easily. I'll actually take the gas blower and I'll hold this up to the gas blower, turn it on high, and I've got 200 miles an hour of wind blowing through this thing, getting a lot of the dust out of there. Not all of it, but most of it. All right, other side tools, we've got another knife. We've got a bigger screwdriver. This is the tool that I don't like it at all. It's a 2-dimensional Phillips, which to me, I don't know if it works. I just don't use it because I don't want to risk stripping out the contact points in a Phillips head screw. And if you've ever done that, it is a pain in the burrow when that happens. All right. And then of course you got the saw in here. Those are all, again, locking tools. So not a bad set. You've got a good pliers in here, and this is what I use it primarily to cut trimmer line string and also to grab onto bolt heads, nuts, that kind of thing. And I can get a good grip on these. One thing I wish that some of these multi-tools would consider engineering into this, and that is a slip joint or a variable sized jaw. Like, you have the pliers that you can slide up and down and widen out the grip so that, and the reason for it is so that when you start to clamp down, you start to clamp down more parallel at a wider space. And that's the whole purpose of it, like a channel pliers. you can get a nice parallel grip while the pliers remains further open for bigger bolt heads and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the thing I have, but it does a good job of cutting trimmer string, things like that, grabbing onto the head of a bolt or nut. Nice fine teeth on here as far as the pliers go. And really this is about the same dimensions as a typical needle nose pliers anyway. And you'll find out when I talk about the Swiss Army tool, I have a preference when it comes to pliers for certain things. If I'm really cranking on something, these are the ones I'm going to grab because I have so much leverage. And they're designed, they're heavier duty and that whole thing. But I don't use these all the time. Okay. Now also in this kit, I've got a pen, just a generic ballpoint push pen. And then I've got my Olight. This is the Baton 3 Pro. All right. I've had this for a couple of years. Magnetic charging, which sucks because when I want to, if I'm out in the field and I need to put a new battery in, I can't put a new battery in, I have to go back and charge it with a cord. So it's reliant on a cord. Now Olight's come out with a way of charging on a base, and that base is a Type-C charging cord. The problem is I still can't access the battery, swap in a battery, and go back to work, which is really what it should be, okay? Great light, high, medium, low, turbo, ultra low, has all the typical stuff for Olight, and I think the output on this is like 1,000 lumens. It's an 18650 battery generally. Its voltage is tuned down to be a proprietary battery, so you can't just swap in an 18650 battery in here, which again goes back to Olight. They're doing some cool stuff, but it's not user friendly for that reason. So this is what I wear on my hip, and I use all this. Matter of fact, the thing I haven't really used much is the pen. But I just put it in there because there's a hole there and I don't want it to fill up with dirt. So, all right, there we go. So now we're going to go to the Swiss Army knife. Now this is the Deluxe Tinker. And you'll probably notice right away that the scales on here are different. Okay, this is the plus scales. But even the plus scales, it looks different. And if you noticed it, I'm kind of curious to see if anybody noticed it. But yeah, I've modified the plus scale to include, I've taken the toothpick, which is supposed to be here, and I've moved that over here, and I actually cut its own slot. So I bought plus scales, and I added the pen because it doesn't come with the plus scales for this knife. Added the pen, I cut a slot in here for the toothpick, and it works just fine. I think I shaved a little bit off the toothpick just to make it fit a little bit better off the sides. But other than that, it works just fine. And people talk about, well, why would you even want to keep that? Just put the fire starter in because the toothpick is just gross, to use it in your mouth and then put it back in there. A couple of reasons why. Number one, I use this probably as much or more to clean out the plug on my iPhone, to go in there and just kind of get the dirt that accumulates and dust and lint and all that stuff, when you put the plug in, the plug seats properly. So that's one reason. The second reason is I think it's a bunch of bull that anybody should be scared of what you're putting in your mouth here. Wipe it off, get that stuff off there. But the reality is life is supposed to be a little bit more bacteria laden, because that's how your body gets used to bacteria and viruses, and your white blood cells get used to that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about stick it in sewage and use it there. But what I am saying is I have no fear over using it and putting it back in here. I do wipe it dry. I wipe it before I put it in my mouth, the whole thing. But I have no problem with that because part of life is getting inoculated with that stuff because that's how your immune system works. That's actually part of how your body works, and it's designed that way. All right, it didn't happen that way. It's designed that way. All right. So yeah, I've got the plus scales in here. So here's the tweezers across from the toothpick, and then I've got the ballpoint pen. And I've got the fire starter on the other side. Easy modification. Just get yourself a set of plus scales on there and then just channel out, because it's basically ribs in the inside of this. And you just cut out the ribs so that this fits in there. You lay it across there, get your measurements in there, and you just cut out the ribs and it slides in and out. Now, one other modification that I've made on these plus scales is typically you only get one slot for a needle. I've got a second needle in there. Okay, now, for those of folks that are in law enforcement, military, first responders, that kind of thing, you know the phrase, 1 is none, 2 is 1, 3 is 2. So I've got 2 of them in here, and I actually like the idea of having 2 needles in here for a lot of reasons. One, if you bend one, for whatever reason, you're trying to do something and it bends, it's like, well, that didn't work. Well, now you're out the needle as well. So I've got a backup for that, okay? And it's really, again, make the modification. You just cut out a couple of ribs that are inside here, and you can slide in another needle. You got 2 needles going on. And there you go. And they're covered up by this Phillips screwdriver. Okay. So this is the Deluxe Tinker. Real quick, 2 knives. You've got the openers, the can opener, bottle opener. You got the pliers. And I want to talk about the pliers just briefly because this is what I'm talking about between these 2 pliers. If I have to do something that's a little bit more delicate, get into some place, and still I need some leverage, some grip, I've got plenty of grip on these pliers. Now, some people say, well, that's not a very robust pliers. Oh, yes, it is. Absolutely it is. I have grabbed onto some things I didn't think I was going to be able to hang on to with these pliers. And I pushed down on it, and I pushed down on it, pushed down. Like, man, I can really crank on this, okay? Now, it does have allegedly wire cutters. You can see the little notch right here, right just above the pin of the pivot. And supposedly to cut a wire, I would think you're cutting very low, small gauge wire, okay? But when I want to crank on something, you can see the difference between the two. Obviously, I'm going to use my multi-tool to really grab onto something and pull. But if I'm grabbing in and grabbing, you know, a wire or something, I may end up grabbing it with this because frankly, this is too big. Look at the size difference, okay? I can get this tool into a smaller space than I can get this tool, all right? Which also means I have more flexibility in how I move that tool around. And I just think it's worth it. So that's one tool that I really like on the Deluxe Tinker. The other one is this, and that's the Phillips screwdriver. The driver on the Gerber, see if I can find it, here it is. We'll pull this out. This is the driver that you have on the Gerber multi-tool. Now remember, this locks, okay? This does not lock, so that plus goes to the Gerber for a locking tool. But this is a 2-dimensional Phillips head, whereas the Swiss Army knife is a 3-dimensional, full design, number 2, I think it's the number 2 Phillips screwdriver. Which one would you rather crank on? I would rather crank on with the Swiss Army knife. Now, at the same time, I can also turn, much like a corkscrew, I have leverage to turn this more so than an offset. Okay, so this is pretty much set in the center of the Swiss Army tool, whereas this is offset, and so you're kind of manipulating the handle goes around in kind of a weird way around the Phillips head screwdriver. So that's another reason why I like to carry the Deluxe Tinker. So with all those things in mind, I have got everything. You know, if I tear a nail or something, I'm going to grab the Swiss Army tool to take care of it. If I have something that's much more, you know, needing some attitude adjustments, I'm pulling out the Gerber multi-tool for sure. I like the knives on the Swiss Army knife more than I like the knives on the Gerber tool, although now I've got 4 knives. I've got plenty of knives to go around. I've got some flexibility with my pliers. I've got a great Phillips. I've got a couple of good flathead screwdrivers. You know, the one on the Swiss Army knife, I like this one a lot. Oh, by the way, this is something, I don't know where I picked this up. This is off of YouTube. But you can buy these little magnets, and if you ever need a magnet for anything, and I say if you ever need one, like it really is that simple. You just slide it in here, and it goes right basically inside this hole right here on the can opener. And when it shuts, it goes all the way back down. You don't even know it's there. Okay, so I've added an extra pin, I've added a magnet, and I've also added one extra tool on the scales on this thing. So I really like this setup. I think it's a good setup. Overall, it gets me all the things that I need it to do, and then some, whether it's, you know, something that happens to me or something that happens to a piece of equipment. I think these 2 multi-tools really cover a lot of ground. Now, I carry these for work, and then I do a complete switch out, and I carry totally different multi-tool for just personal walking around. I don't necessarily need all of these tools for day-to-day work, just walking to the grocery store and running errands, those kind of things, around the house. Now, I've been, I guess, I'm okay with this setup. I like this. I like the Gerber Suspension, and I like the Swiss Army Deluxe Tinker. It's doing everything. But like any person who's doing, especially reviews on a channel like this, but for anybody who's looking like, is there a way to compact this all the way down into one tool? Yeah, I'm sure there's a tool out there. I'm sure it's probably a bigger tool than what I've got going on here. And sometimes when you go for that all-in-one, you lose a little bit of the specialization of one over the other. Like again, the pliers on the suspension is far more robust than the pliers on the Swiss Army knife. But I have been going through looking at especially the size around Swiss Army knives, because Swiss Army knives, you know, they're the best for a reason. They just have been around. They got the engineering down. They've got the great materials that go into the tools down. The quality control is really good. Is it perfect? Nothing's perfect, but it's really, really good, especially the scissors and the pliers. Like the tolerance you get out of this, when you look at the scissors, let's look at the pliers first. Like how much play are you getting side to side on the rivet, on the pivot here, which looks like a rivet. Okay. Yeah. They just pound basically it's a rivet. There is no play in something like that. And so that just means that you're going to get a longer lasting pliers out of this. The same thing with the scissors. So I've been looking at tools and I came across Rock Tool. This is actually one that I didn't come across by myself. I saw this on the interwebs and I'm impressed with it. And there's a couple of things I really like about this. Number one, it's the simplicity of the tools that are involved here and the way things are locked down. What makes me a little bit nervous about Swiss Army knives is the tools are slip joint and they just don't lock down. Now there's a good reason for that because if you're in the EU, east of the Atlantic, there's a lot of laws around locking blades. And so they don't have locking blades, they have slip joints. So I understand that, I get it. And I don't mind slip joints. I think slip joints for the most part are okay, except when you really start cranking on things, then it's like, make sure you're pressing the right direction because that thing can close on you in an instant. So the slip joints on here don't exist. These are locking tools. And so when you take out the knife, you end up, and you hear the click, there's the click. That is the liner lock basically for the knife right here. So when you want to close it, you have to press that in just like any other liner lock knife and it comes right down. Same thing when it comes down to the scissors. This is a great pair of scissors and it also has a liner lock. There it is. You hear that click. When it clicks, the handle pops out because the spring is pressurized and great scissors. This might be, there's a little play in this. You can see the little play right there. Okay. I'll hold it real still. There we go. There's a little bit of play in that. So I'm not totally thrilled on that. Now remember, scissors work because you're pinching two basically not right angle, but you know, close to right angle edges together. And it's that pinching action that causes it to cut. So as long as you're pushing out just a little bit, you're going to get the same scissor action. Okay, so that's the fix on that. But at the same time, yeah, it's a little loose. All right, liner lock, pull that back in. What I like about the backside, these are all the basic tools. You've got the awl, which, you know, you're not going to use that unless you're outdoors. And then you've got a couple other tools here that I just don't pull these out very often, so they're kind of harder to pull out. But you've got a good-sized flathead. You've got a small, like eyeglasses type size Phillips here. And then you've got your can opener and bottle opener and all that, wire stripper. Okay. And the wire stripper, actually, I like this because it's actually sharp. I look at some of the ones, I don't see the wire stripper being as sharp as it needs to be. I like a little bit of a bite to it, more so than what Swiss Army knife puts on theirs. What's missing on here right now is the Phillips driver. There's no Phillips driver on here. However, before we get to that, I want to show you how you unlock this. So this is locked in place. So when you press this button down back here, it raises this bar. And if you can see, that bar is L-shaped. And the L part of that shape fits into a notch on the back side over here. And that's what locks this into place. Okay? So you see that just kind of pop down in there. So there's your locking mechanism. Now, what this does have is a dedicated bit driver, and this is a slip joint. It doesn't lock, and you've got the flathead, and you've got a Phillips, and it's centered. Great screwdriver. I love it. So to me, this is a really great system right here. This is one I've been trying. I'm carrying this more for non-work purposes and just kind of around the house, because it covers just about everything I'm going to do around the house. I've got a couple of bits for a screwdriver. I've got a great knife. I've got a flathead over here if I need something bigger. Scissors is awesome. So that's a great one. So Rock Tool, I actually recommend that one just for around the house. Now, next up, we have Roxon. This is also another one off of YouTube. I had to try it because I was fascinated by it. And I'm fascinated by the bit driver piece here. We're going to get to that in a second. I'm not a fan of carrying other stuff in my pocket. Like if this is loose in my pocket, no way. I'm not carrying this. It's not going to work. I got too much stuff in my pockets. It needs to be together. So let's go over the main tools on the side with the knife. It has a great D2 knife. Again, locks into place right there. Okay. Liner lock, push that over, comes back, watch your thumb. Great scissors. This is the part that I love. I love the scissors. Look at the size of those scissors, okay? Let me pull out the scissors on the Swiss Army knife. This puts it to shame. I mean, this is not even close. You know, this is like pros versus high school. Look at that. Massive difference. Now, what's the tolerance? On the Swiss Army knife, there's no play whatsoever. On the Roxon, none. None. Zero. Awesome. Now, that would be great. Big scissors. You can cut bigger things. You have jaws a little bit longer, so you can cut a longer path, whether it's paper or whatever. But here's something else that's on here. You got a tweezer on here. And I don't understand why other companies like the Gerber multitools or Leatherman multitools, why they don't have this in all of their multitools. Figure out a way to put a little tweezer in the handle of something. Okay, I just think it's awesome. All right, so there's your scissors. It's awesome. Lock that back into place. Now, what I like about this is the way that you activate the tools. You have this button that you press up. It pushes everything up for you. Easy access. I love that. Super easy access. Pretty good screwdriver. I wish it was bigger. I wish this tool, matter of fact, was a little bit bigger. The overall size of this, if it was bigger, we'll pull out the Swiss Army knife one. You can see the size difference between these two. And if it was bigger, you'd end up with a bigger screwdriver at the top. It's not by much, though. Matter of fact, it is the same size. I just wish I had a bigger screwdriver here, and you'll find out why in a minute. Good tools. You got the awl. You've got the sewing eye there. You got the bottle opener, can opener. And then you also have a file, which I think is great. Just put a file on here. I'm going to go back to the parcel hook. If they'd have just put a file on the back side of the parcel hook, it'd be awesome. Roxon has that on here, which is great. It's a good file. On the other side, you have a 3 centimeter measurement tool there, and you got a 1 inch measurement tool there, and a pretty good Phillips screwdriver head. It's not real big. This is probably a Phillips 1, but it's great, and it's almost centered on the multi-tool. It's not bad. It's a little bit off-centered on this side here and on left to right. Not bad at all. Now to unlock this, you press this down and it unlocks. Okay. Now that's not the only thing, because you've got these tools here that we're going to use. So if we pull that tool back out, and again we just push up on here, lock it in place. We're going to take out the socket. We're going to put that on here, square on square. There's a little bit of a magnet here. It does stay in place. Okay, which is good. And then you've got 3 Torx. You've got you got 1 flathead, a couple of hex, small hex. You've got 2 more Phillips, one that looks like it's a little bit larger and one that's a little bit smaller, and then a really small Phillips. I mean, this is tiny, very tiny. And they all fit in here. This is perfect, works great, okay? It is not a 1/4 inch driver, so you're not gonna fit other bits in there. I don't know what the size of this one is. It's less than a 1/4 inch for sure. But you could put that in there. Now, as far as carrying this around, it also comes with this case, which I love the case. And actually, this might be something that I have in my backpack for camping. This may be something that I carry when I know I'm going to go out and do something I always have my belt on, and just put this on my belt so I've got that multi-tool with me. You've got some great options with this one, okay? I think the Deluxe Tinker might actually outdo this one. However, this one has all of the different bits. And so if you're doing something with like technology, you're doing something with, I don't know, that kind of thing, this is probably the one for that, okay? Next up, we're going to go through this next couple a little bit quicker because these are much, much newer. My first pry bar. I really don't like pry bars. I still don't like pry bars. I think they're a waste of time and space in your pocket. I think they're a waste of time to make. You can get, if you need a pry bar, get a pry bar, all right? This, I get, and I might eat my words on this one, but I'll as soon as I find out, if I have a nail I need to get out, I'll use this. I'll try and get this out if I have it in my pocket. Now, what I like about this tool, the reason why I bought this wasn't for the pry bar, and it wasn't for the can opener. To me, that's like the awl on the Swiss Army knife. Like, when are you going to use that except for very specific outdoor uses? What interested me was this piece right here, because I'm familiar with this. This is basically a wrench, an adjustable wrench for any type of smaller hex nut head bolt. The nice thing about this is if you orient this the right way, as you try to unscrew or tighten loosen or tighten the bolt. Depending on how you set up, the pressure that you put onto this tightens the arm around the head of the nut or the bolt. Okay, so I love those. I think that's great. And there's a little bit of play in this one. If you see that, there's a little bit of side to side. I tried tightening this down and it wouldn't work. Matter of fact, I tried using one of the Torx screws off of the Roxon. That held, and I had another one that I used at the house, and that one started to strip a little bit. So we know that the material they're using in here is pretty hard. That's good. Now you have two more tools in here. You have the Phillips, and you also have the flathead, and there's a magnet in here. And I'm going to use this just to make this faster. Use my watch link tool there. Magnetized 1/4-inch hex bit right there. It holds it in place. So if you have other hex or 1/4-inch bits that you want to put in here, you can do that. Maybe there's a specific Torx one that you want to bring. You can put that in here as well. Okay. Now it's a flat bottom, so if you have a dual-sided one like you had on the rock tool, it's not going to work in here because you need a flat bottom for it to sit in the magnet. Okay. You have the flat head and you have the Phillips. Also, what you have is you have this ratcheting 1/4-inch system. So I can put this in here, and if I have a nut driver, okay, let's say I have this with you're carrying a small little tool bit case with some nut drivers on there. You can put this on here and you can tighten those things down. You're going to get plenty of leverage. This is actually a good lever out here for doing that. And it's just a matter of keeping your thumb on top, and cranking down on this and push down a little bit, give a little pressure, downward pressure on it, and you'd be totally fine. So I actually like this. And because there's a magnet here, there's also kind of a magnetic field on the backside. Okay, so it works not as well there as it does over here. Okay, so you get a little bit of a magnetic field there, which is good. Just magnetized a watch tool, that's not good. So again, I'm not into this for the pry bar part, but it is interesting that way. Now, last but not least, it is the Swiss Army Champ, or the Victorinox Champ. So the question is, like, you got this tool here, the Gerber multi-tool, which is really not size-wise, dimension-wise, all that different. Let's pull this out than the Swiss Champ. Okay. Thickness-wise, about the same, okay? Really, really close, all right? Flares out a little bit. You got the massive pliers in here. That's one of the reasons why it's bigger. But the tool selection in here is far, far better. Pliers aside, okay? So maybe this is the case where I carry the Swiss Champ and a pliers, and maybe that's the way to go. And put a pliers in here, put the Swiss Champ over here, nothing in my pocket. That could be the whole setup right there. But the tools you have on here are basically the same as the Tinker. You've got the screwdriver, the Phillips screwdriver, you got the pliers, you got two knives, you got the openers, the can opener, bottle opener, parcel hook, you've got the awl. What you have on the backside though is you have a couple of other screwdrivers, and this is kind of important, I think, because these smaller screwdrivers actually, I think, do a pretty good job. When you have the right size flathead screwdriver, you tend not to damage the head of the screw, and this is a smaller one. Okay, so you've got all that. This is also a tool with the plus scales on here. So I have the pin, I've got the pen, I've got the toothpick, and also the tweezer. And I'm going to do the same upgrade that I did on the Deluxe Tinker, and that is there's the pin. This is the fire starter, okay. And then over here we've got the tweezer, and then I put the toothpick down here. I'm going to put a toothpick down here. So I'm going to get another set of plus scales. I'm going to upgrade this. I'm also going to put in 2 pins over here because 2 is 1, 1 is none. That whole thing. So, and you get the corkscrew on here. So you get the eyeglass on here. You could have a fire starting kit on there. There's some things that you can do with that. So overall, do I like this one far better? Yes, absolutely. Oh, it also has the fishing thing if you're into fishing. But the real big thing here is the saw, and you have the file. This one is not on the Deluxe Tinker. And I could actually use both of these when I'm out working around, okay? The saw on the Gerber tool is just nothing compared to this. Let's pull the saw out for just a second. Here it is, right here. So here's the saw on the Gerber multi-tool. Now, we got to compare where the saw blade, the teeth start to where they end. And this is how much longer you have of a cut with the Champ. I think it's right down about here. So if you line up the teeth like that. Now the teeth are a little bit closer together on the Gerber, so not quite as aggressive, which means you're going to, it's more, draw, pull, or push, pull, I should say, when it comes to using the saw. So yeah, I think, again, I don't know, maybe the Swiss Champ is the way to go. I'd love to hear what your feedback is on this. Also, you have the magnifying lens, which I've actually used. When I was a kid, I kind of poo-pooed that because it's like, well, the only thing that's good for is starting fires. Well, now my eyesight's not so good. And so it's helpful for reading things. I actually read on one of the watches I was doing a review on. I was like, what does that say? Does that say 660 feet? I think it was a 200 meter, 660 foot water resistant thing. This actually helped me see that. So I pulled this out of my pocket and I used it. Now, pocket carry, can you pocket carry the Swiss Champ? Yeah, but it's big. It's really big. Even the Tinker is kind of on the big side. It's probably as big as most people want to go, but you have some really good tools on the Tinker. This is a good 50%. Yeah, it's probably 50% bigger than the Tinker, which also means you have added weight because there's more steel in there. But I do like this. So these are the tools that I have that I've been using. You've got the standby tool set that I've been using for a couple of years now. And then I've got these ones that I'm exploring with, the rock tool, the Roxon, the pry bar, and then the Swiss Army Champ. And I like them. I like the ideas behind them. Maybe it's just kind of a rotation to find out. I think the rock tool is probably the one I'm not going to hang on to. I'll probably give this one away. And I don't know. It's just I love the bit driver on here. There's some locking blade, locking scissors, some good things about those things. So put in the comments down below what you think of the tool set that I have for work. And again, this is for doing things outdoors with machines, cutting heavier duty line, tightening things down, small repairs, twisting wire. I've fixed some lights with wire until I get home, and then I can use whatever tools I need to put more permanently back in place. Those kind of things. That's what I'm looking for advice on. If you got anything for me on that, check out my webpage, realidealgear.com. I've got some used equipment there, such as watches, knives, flashlights, some kits like watches and flashlight kits, a Casio flashlight watch combination, which basically means one of them is free and the other one you're paying for. So it's like $20. You get two for one, basically. So check that out if you would. Put the comments down below. Appreciate your time. My name is Tim. This has been another Real Ideal Gear review, and we'll catch you guys next time.